Imagine if history textbooks contained not just what students need to know, but everything that has happened in the world. Interesting, horrifying, incredible, and beautiful. We would need hundreds of years to read them all. However, it's unfortunate that some extremely fascinating facts and incidents remain unknown to the general public. We've decided to correct this injustice and have collected a series of 20 intriguing historical details for you. Welcome to Top Facts channel. We're going to delve into various eras and parts of the world and show you things that no teacher will tell you about. We wish you a pleasant viewing experience. One of the Romans' greatest engineering achievements was their high-tech system of aqueducts and water supply. But don't think that they invented it. The Romans only refined the system, creating extensive networks of lead and stone pipes. They were pioneers in public health and what we now call sanitation, thereby making a significant contribution to the development of civilization. The Roman water supply system was incredibly advanced for its time. Their engineering skills were impressive. These were monumental structures capable of transporting water from sources several kilometers away into the towns and settlements of Rome. The city was supplied by 11 aqueducts that provided water for public baths, fountains, and private homes. And this was drinking water. Sanitation also became a socially important concept. The Romans built extensive sewer systems. Are you familiar with the word cloaca? Although it sounds like a swear word, it's actually technical. The famous Roman Cloaca Maxima was one of the first sewer systems that allowed waste to be discharged into the Tiber River without contaminating the sources from which water was drawn for the citizens' needs. The Romans made just one mistake. They used lead pipes, unaware that lead poisons water. Some historians even boldly suggested that the widespread use of lead could have contributed to the decline of the empire. Overall, the Roman water supply system had a significant impact on the further development of urban infrastructure and public health, even with its forgivable flaws. Queen Cleopatra is traditionally portrayed as an exotic Egyptian beauty, but we may now disappoint or intrigue you. The true roots of Cleopatra, the last reigning queen of Egypt, are not Egyptian, but of Macedonian Greek origin. Descending from the dynasty of Ptolemy I, a companion of Alexander the Great who became the ruler of Egypt after Alexander's death, Cleopatra was not unique. Every girl in the Ptolemy lineage was named Cleopatra, and the boys were called Ptolemies. Unlike her predecessors, Cleopatra had to learn the Egyptian language. Her Hellenistic roots mixed with local traditions, creating complexities of cultural identity in a historical context. On the other hand, whoever she may have been by origin, this Cleopatra is mentioned as the most beautiful Egyptian queen on earth. The Library of Alexandria in ancient Egypt was one of the largest and most significant in the ancient world, housing an extensive collection of invaluable manuscripts and up to 400,000 scrolls, a massive cultural heritage that was unfortunately lost. This repository was not just a valuable library, but a symbol of knowledge and cultural unity, a treasure trove of the 3rd century BCE, and also the most famous educational center of the ancient world. The jewel of Hellenistic civilization attracted scholars from all around the Mediterranean, those who thirsted for knowledge at the peak of their development and formed the elite of ancient society. These hundreds of thousands of scrolls contained works on history, philosophy, mathematics, astronomy, a vast repository of invaluable knowledge. It is especially tragic that the manuscripts faced such a fate. They were harmed by numerous destructive events, including fires during the Civil War in the time of Julius Caesar in 48 BCE, religious riots, and conflicts in subsequent centuries. Each act of vandalism led to irreparable losses. The loss of the Library of Alexandria is one of the greatest tragedies in the history of culture, and we can only speculate about the content of the lost scrolls. Unfortunately, in those times, there were only handmade carriers, and the catastrophic loss of the valuable collection only emphasizes the fragility of knowledge and the still primitive nature of human consciousness. incapable of appreciating intellectual labor and works of art. Did you know that during the Middle Ages there was a significant cooling across the Northern Hemisphere? This occurred from 1300 to 1850 and had a profound impact on the course of European history. While the Asian part of the continent was sweltering in heat, Europe experienced an era of political unrest and cultural revolutions. This little ice age had deep consequences for society. For example, it led to drastic changes in agricultural methods. Just imagine what a crop failure of rye or wheat meant without the possibility of import-export. Starvation was the obvious outcome, but strangely, the need for survival led to the rise, not the decline, of art. Paintings shown in new colors. Frozen landscapes on canvases starkly contrasted with fertile landscapes in earlier works. The already cold River Thames froze several times, leading to the popularity of ice skating, thus cultivating the sport. The cooling period also drove the Vikings out of Greenland, where the harsh climate deprived them of the ability to live off agriculture and hunting. In July of 1518, the city of Strasbourg was overtaken by a strange fever, known as the Dancing Plague. It all started with one woman who spontaneously began to energetically dance in the street. For some reason, her lonely jig was picked up by others, and for an entire month, around 400 citizens were consumed by this relentless desire to dance uncontrollably, as if their collective mind had become clouded. The dancing mania lasted for days on end and led to fainting from exhaustion for some and even death for others. In the most severe cases, people dropped dead. Various explanations were attempted for this contagion, from divine judgment to overheated blood. Modern theories have suggested mass hysteria typical for medieval Europe or ergotism, a condition caused by the consumption of cereal grains infected with certain types of fungi. Although the exact cause remains a mystery, the dancing plague of 1518 is recorded as an unusual social phenomenon and has become an interesting case for studying the phenomenon of mass consciousness. The life of real pirates wasn't as glamorous as portrayed in the movies. There were no handsome and brave adventurers among them, just dirty and hungry robbers. Pirates lived outside social norms, and their life was hard and short, like a dangerous and grim romance with death. Limited access to fresh produce and clean drinking water, scurvy, a terrible disease that affects the teeth due to a lack of vitamin C. These were just everyday inconveniences. Additionally, there was a constant risk of fatal injuries in battles, storms, or shipwrecks. The form of governance on a pirate ship was democracy. The captain and quartermaster were chosen by the crew. What a contrast to the strict hierarchy on naval and merchant ships of the Royal Fleet. So, despite the romantic images of treasure chests and exotic adventures, the reality for most pirates was an exhausting struggle for existence at sea, and their lives usually ended early due to violent death or hard labor. People hardly became pirates for the thirst for adventure, more likely out of desperation. The calendar used by most of the world today, known as the Gregorian Calendar, was introduced by Pope Gregory XIII in 1582. It was a papal update of the Julian calendar, based on the Easter cycle, and the Gregorian version aimed to tie the year to the astronomical logic, spring equinox, on March 21st. However, the new calendar was initially accepted only by Catholic countries, while Protestant and Orthodox states viewed it with suspicion, suspecting a Catholic conspiracy. Great Britain and its colonies, including the future United States, did not adopt the Gregorian calendar until 1752, and in Russia, the resulting two-week difference with the European calendar was eliminated only after the Revolution, already in 1918. Can you imagine the confusion that arose? Vikings are often depicted as savages wearing horned helmets, devoid of a sense of beauty and capable only of conquest and killing. This common stereotype is another misconception. They were also traders, explorers, and travelers. From 800 to 1050 AD, Vikings actively and boldly explored the world, even reaching North America before Columbus. Archaeological findings show that Viking culture had a well-developed artistic style. they fished and successfully engaged in farming. Quite peaceful activities. The horned helmets are a romanticized notion from the 19th century, attributing excessive brutality to the Vikings. The first helmets found by archaeologists had no horns. In defense of the Vikings, their culture gave us the concept of coziness. And IKEA is also a result of their industriousness. And of course, their bravery is all entirely true. London, the capital of Great Britain, did not emerge in its current linguistic form right away. The roots of the English language can be traced back to lingua franca, a complex and varied history born from the amalgamation of various languages, much like a mosaic. All dialects known as Old English or Anglo-Saxon can be traced back to the 5th and 6th centuries, when the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes, who invaded Britain, began to form a new community. The Normans brought Old French with them, significantly enriching the English vocabulary, especially in words related to law, art, and management. In subsequent centuries, English continued to borrow heavily from Latin, Greek, and other languages. The active colonization and trade practices of the British Empire also continued to enrich the language. The English language, its vocabulary, and its grammar are like Lego, a construction set assembled from different languages. Most likely, English turned out to be the most sociable language, absorbing all possible borrowings, showing us that language is not an isolated entity, but a dynamically evolving phenomenon, a mirror of historical and cultural human interactions over time. The same thing we are doing now, taking business slang from different languages and adapting it to our reality, filling our language with foreign words. The Great Wall of China is not just a fortress, contrary to popular belief. Invaders like the Mongols had already left China, but the initial purpose of this gigantic structure was not solely defensive. It also served as a customs post and was built to control the trade flow along the Silk Road. Around 221 BCE, these walls also served as immigration and emigration control points. Tariffs were imposed on goods, and guard posts and watchtowers along the wall served as customs checkpoints, where taxes were collected from merchants. So, already in antiquity, a mechanism was established that states still use today. The only catch, back then, they accepted only cash. In some families, they won't even eat semolina porridge without it. Ketchup is the main sauce, and mayonnaise is perhaps its only rival. But its history did not start with the tomato or even the American continent. Ketchup was invented, again you will say, yes, in China. The original version was entirely different, a mixture of marinated fish and spices. This sauce was discovered by British explorers in the 18th century during the gastronomic part of their excursion. It then made its way to England, where new ingredients like mushrooms, walnuts, and even oysters were added. Tomatoes became part of ketchup's evolution only in the early 19th century, and the real deal, the tomato ketchup, was finally cooked up by American chefs. Now you can breathe easy. Everything is in its place. We won't touch French fries so as not to upset you. What if it turns out they are also Chinese? It became an unexpected event in the world of technology. In 1945, Percy Spencer, an engineer at the Raytheon Company, was developing radar systems and suddenly noticed that the chocolate bar in his pocket had melted when he was near the devices. This anomaly led him to explore how microwaves affect various substances, and the result was a microwave oven, a favorite in many households. Pure chance. The invention of the microwave oven was not intentional. Rather, it was a fortunate accident. His company became a leader in the production of magnetron devices, which generate high-frequency radio waves. And when the chocolate bar melted and the engineer himself did not, he realized the magical effect of microwaves. He began to experiment further. First, popcorn appeared, then an egg exploded, shooting right in front of one of his colleagues. They realized that microwaves emitted by the magnetron led to instant heating. The concept of cooking food in a microwave oven became a revolutionary discovery, and sensing profit, the company patented the invention. The first mass-produced microwave, named Radarange, as opposed to radar, was released in 1947. Of course, originally it was a bulky and expensive device, but thanks to improvements, household appliances have made their way into homes worldwide. And this was right after World War II. Can you draw any parallels? Do you think wars are fought only among humans? You will probably be surprised by an unusual conflict that occurred in Australia in the 1930s. It was called the Great Emu War, EMU. After World War I, Australia fell into an agricultural crisis, exacerbated by the invasion of unexpected enemies, emu ostriches. These massive flightless birds migrated within the country each mating season and suddenly occupied lands that farmers had just begun to recover. Naturally, the ostriches destroyed crops, and farmers were forced to appeal to the government. The government, in turn, engaged the army and sent machine-gun-armed forces to war against the emus. The attempt to eliminate the emu population didn't exactly fail, but the resilient and agile ostrich proved to be a tough opponent. Animal rights organizations also got involved, and the operation was called off. Funny, right? People with firearms lost a war to birds. In the end, a fencing system turned out to be more effective. But this passage in Australia's history is nearly as vivid as its catastrophic rabbit overpopulation. So conflicts between humans and animals are also a fact of life. Christopher Columbus is widely known as the discoverer of America. His sensational journey in the glory of the Spanish crown in 1492 is considered a discovery. However, let's not sing his praises unnecessarily. This was a mistake in calculations. Imagine the distance from Spain to India and from Spain to America. Yes, when there were no satellites and the system of calculations simply had no real sense of the planet's scale, this is how this blunder happened, costing the world the discovery of yet another continent. Columbus set sail, thinking that he could quickly reach Asia by traveling west from Europe, grossly underestimating the Earth's circumference. When Columbus arrived in the Caribbean Sea Basin, he thought he had reached the East Indies. Thus, the native inhabitants he encountered were incorrectly called Indians. And we live with this to this day. Benjamin Franklin, an American president, had a peculiar fondness for the turkey. No, not the roasted kind, but as a symbol of courage. In a letter to his daughter, Franklin expressed the idea of making the national symbol of America not the eagle, but the turkey. It would look funny on the coat of arms and on banknotes. This unusual story gives us insights into political figures. They were also people, each with their own quirks and peculiarities. George Washington, the first president of the United States of America, is usually depicted with a stoic expression in profile. Have you seen the $1 coin? But the secret to his impassiveness lies in a problem with his teeth. A big, serious problem. Contrary to popular belief, Washington did not have wooden teeth. His dental prosthetics were made from a combination of metals, gold and lead, ivory, and even other people's teeth. Not very pleasant to put in your mouth every day. Washington suffered from dental problems from the age of 20, and by the time he took the presidential oath, he was left with a single original tooth. What a nuisance. These problems caused him significant discomfort and even changed the shape of his face. Perhaps that's why his public speeches were so brief. His inaugural address made history as the shortest. Mount Rushmore is famous for its giant sculpture. Carved into its peaks are the faces of 4 U.S. presidents. However, before it became a symbol of American history, the area was considered sacred by the Lakota Indian tribe. They called it the Six Grandfathers. Under the Treaty of 1868, the U.S. government recognized the Black Hills, where Mount Rushmore is located, as part of the Great Sioux Reservation. However, discovered gold deposits led to an influx of settlers, and the U.S. government failed to honor the treaty's terms, leading to a whole new war. At the end of this war, the U.S. authorities unilaterally took over Native American lands. Later, the Native Americans won these lands in court, but refused to accept money as compensation. To this day, territorial rights of indigenous peoples remain a sore point for many countries. Surely the Native Americans would have preferred to see the faces of their ancestors on these rocks. The evidence about Napoleon Bonaparte's unusually short stature is a historical misconception. The misunderstanding arose due to a metric system issue. It was reported that his height at the time of his death was 5 feet 2 inches. But first, those were French feet, which are nearly 2 centimeters longer than English feet. And second, according to English measurements, Napoleon's height was 5 feet and even 7 inches. That is around 168 centimeters, a normal height, even a bit taller than average for Frenchmen of that time. This misconception greatly pleased British cartoonists, who seized upon it as the most well-known flaw. Thus, rumors and mistakes turned Napoleon into a conceited and touchy short person. It is interesting to ponder what will be written about famous people of today 100 years from now. So our investigation under the code name Piercing Eye has concluded. Write in the comments what you liked the most. Don't forget to rate the video with a like or dislike, and of course subscribe to the channel Top Facts. See you in the next compilations. Thank you for watching.